He honore, he kroria, he mau ngā rongo ki te mata o te whenua, he whakaro pai ki ngā tāngata katoa, tēnā koutou. Thank you for the opportunity to address you all this evening. As you know, Aotearoa New Zealand signed the CPTPP, the successor to the TPP, in 2018. I won't go into the technical details, I'll leave that for Vangelis to cover off tomorrow. But the CPTPP provides significant commercial opportunities for Māori in particular, and to strengthen alliances at a time of increasing global economic uncertainty and protectionism. The CPTPP also responds to a broader set of issues at play, particularly around investment, intellectual property, health, as well as the impacts of international trade. The government heard the strong concerns that were raised and suspended 22 items from that original agreement. The government also heard the calls for change, not just to trade agreements, but also engagement with New Zealanders, including Māori. The Trade for All Board was established to hear from New Zealanders views on these processes and outcomes, resulting in a range of recommendations and changes to better enhance trade opportunities for all. And that took account of our values: environmental protection, climate change, labour, sustainability and inclusive trade. New Zealand established with Canada and Chile the Inclusive Trade Action Group, with a particular focus on trade and gender and trade and Indigenous peoples. And I'm pleased that Mexico joined this initiative in 2021, with Costa Rica and Ecuador joining this year. We didn't get everything right. The TPP and the CPTPP process, including the Waitangi Tribunal claim and breach finding, highlighted Māori rights, interests and concerns about trade. Important changes have been made to address these issues, including as a result of the Y2522 claim. MFAT has taken active steps to lift and improve its engagement with Māori on trade and economic issues and free trade negotiations. This has seen the Y2522 claimant group, Ngā Toku Whakarururanga, establishing a partnership arrangement with MFAT under a mediation agreement. It is also notable here that MFAT has established both formal and informal partnerships with other Māori entities, Te Taumata, Federation of Māori Authorities, and the National Iwi Chairs Forum. These partnerships provide a framework for us to work together on issues of particular interest or sensitivity for Māori, like specific chapters addressing Māori and trade development in the recent UK and EU FTAs. As a government, we're doing more to ensure that Māori and Indigenous peoples can participate more effectively in key trade policy discussions and negotiations than ever before. But participation is one part of the journey. As we know, creating the right context for partnership and protecting the unique aspects of what and who we are is a dynamic opportunity that we are all a part of. To conclude, Aotearoa is hosting the CPTPP Commission and Senior Officials meetings this year. Our hosting provides an important opportunity to showcase our culture and our values, but importantly, it provides an opportunity as the chair to bring attention to some of those issues in the CPTPP and trade policy more broadly that need to be addressed, including in relation to mātauranga Māori. This conference provides an important opportunity for you all to come together and to bring your collective thoughts and to find solutions on how trade, through both promotion as well as rights protections, can benefit everyone. It is vital to have everyone here talking about this kaupapa, and I commend you all and thank you for giving up your time to have these discussions. While I can't be there with you, I wish you a successful hui, and I look forward to hearing about the outcomes that I understand will be presented to CPTPP trade ministers in July. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa.
Kororia hareruia kia iho o ngā mano matua tama wairua tapu me ngā nehera pono mā te māngai hei tautoko mai ai nei ake nei ai. Tēnā koutou oku rangatira, tēnā koe te araki nui ki ngi tūheitia pota tau te wherowhero, te tua whitu, e noho nei i runga i te ahu rewa tapu o aua tupuna. Tēnā koutou katoa, tēnā koutou i ngā mātāwaka, i ngā manuhiri tuarangi, ko tau mai nei. Hon Rino tēnei, ko hau, ko Rino Tirikatene, ko tahu pōtiki tēnei, ko toa rangatira tēnei, ko rārua tēnei, ko pāhauera tēnei, me Ngāti Hine tēnei, e tuatu nei, e mihi atu nei kia koutou. Tēnā koutou i ngā mate huho o te wā. Haere i ngā mate, haere atu rā, hoki mai kia tātou te kanohi ore e pai nei, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa, and gosh, these lights are bright. It's wonderful to be in attendance at this CPTPP Indigenous hui, and can I acknowledge all of Te Whare Wānanga or Waikato as hosts, and everyone who's taken part here and all who have travelled from far and wide. I know you've must be having quite a long day. It was nice for me to get a leave pass out of Parliament this afternoon to come up here, and I want to acknowledge my tuahine, the Honourable Nanaia Mahuta, who's definitely set the scene in terms of how important CPTPP is for Aotearoa, but also the great scope that it provides for our whānau in terms of trade across the motu. And that's really what I want to talk about today. I'm the Minister of State for Trade and Export Growth, so when we have the CPTPP Commission hui, just in a few weeks' time, hosting all of the trade ministers from all of the 11 and soon to be 12 CPTPP economies, I'll be there supporting, representing Aotearoa, and as host, Minister O'Connor will be chairing the Commission meetings. So it's a big deal for us, for Aotearoa, and it's actually great that we are embodying our Trade for All kaupapa, which is our agenda as a government that we've put in place to ensure that the benefits of trade from the likes of the CPTPP permeate and extend right across all of Aotearoa society, and in particular across all of Māori as well. So I acknowledge all of our chiefs in the room, and I see many of yous, and thank you for your interest in trade policy, but also for the ongoing kōrero that I think is vitally important. When we put in place these mega trade agreements like the CPTPP, it's always important that we remain grounded and we remain connected to our people, to our stakeholders, right across, and in particular to iwi Māori katoa. So of course I'm going to be extolling the virtues of trade because it is such an important part, and it always has been part of our economy, and even now tupuna, we're obviously always grasping at those opportunities, particularly around trade. But before I do, I want to just acknowledge the passing today. I received news today, but the passing of a wonderful public servant of many years, and an amazing wahine rangatira, and her name is Whetū Marama Wereta. Whetū Wereta is the wife of Tūmanako Wereta, who was another amazing gentleman rangatira, and whose whānau are created and are right behind the amazing Tuaropaki Trust and all of those interests up there for those of you from the central North Island. But Whetū Wereta, I want to acknowledge her today because a lot of the work that that we are doing now, we are resting on the shoulders of those that have gone before us. And not too many people know this story, but Whetū was the private secretary for the Honourable Maturata in the Kirk government back in the 1970s. And she was actually, with Minister Rata, she was the architect, I guess. She was the scribe who wrote the cabinet paper on the Treaty of Waitangi Act of 1975. And that act put into, for those of you who are interested in, I'm sure you all know about the treaty jurisprudence, but that put into law through her penning, her writing that paper, put in place the principles of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the creation of the Waitangi Tribunal. And those were landmark pieces of legislation for our country. And at the time, the minister didn't even trust his own department in terms of in terms of putting such a piece, such a cabinet paper together. And so it was done by the minister and his private secretary, who was a very young wahine at the time, and I wanted to share that with you because her late husband, Tūmanako, shared that with me, that story, and it was a real mahi wairua, you know, for them to go through those dynamics. For those of you who are part of the executive government and system, I don't think they could get away with it today, but to be able to put forward the work that goes on, to be able to put that into to sign off the policy through cabinet and to actually enact that legislation, you know, it's ushered in so much for our people over the past 40, nearly 50 years. When I think of tribunal, extension of its jurisdiction back in '84, the ushering in of modern treaty settlements and all of the settlements that have taken place, and also the having a forum for us to air grievances around trade. So all of those have taken place as a result of an amazing public official who just stays, obviously she always stayed out of the spotlight, but I thought it's very appropriate as we mourn her passing that we recognise the work of people like Whetū Wereta and also all the other amazing officials, but also te iwi Māori katoa who have been moving the dial forward for our people. And that is, I want to acknowledge our engagement partners here as well. Sort of a funny term that, eh? But you know, the work that we are doing as government in the trade space with ngā toki whakarururanga, te taumata, iwi chairs, and the Federation of Māori Authorities and all those groups. It's all about ensuring that we are living up to our responsibilities as a good treaty partner, but also ensuring that we are actually ensuring that the benefits from trade are flowing through. And the good news is that it is. We've done the economic analysis on the CPTPP, and I know intuitively it sort of makes sense, but it's nice to actually have the economic studies that have been done, which basically say that Māori do well under the exporting firms that trade with the CPTPP countries are actually doing well. One in 3 Māori are employed in export-related firms. That compares to 1 in 4 of the general population. So we also earn more. Our whānau derive a better standard of living through the firms that they work for that ultimately trade and benefit from these agreements. So these agreements are good for Māori. They are good for our households, and that's evidenced by the economic work that has been done. So that's really that's a great achievement that we can really hang our hat on. I also want to say that it doesn't just stop at the primary industries as well. Of course, that's where a lot of our Māori asset base is concentrated, and we know the studies that have been done around a $70 billion Māori economy and all of those great interests that we have. But I was really so proud and so amazed really to attend the High Tech Awards last week and to see our Māori firms actually winning, not only dominating, they were winning categories at the High Tech Awards and doing so well. And they're internationalising, they're global. And these are Māori firms that were started here, private whānau, have their genesis or their beginnings here, and now they're extending all over the world, all cultures. And that was a real eye-opener for me to see that. And in particular, shout out to Ask Nicely, which is the High-Tech Māori Company of the Year. And also, actually, it was wonderful to see. Another category winner at those High-Tech Awards was led and part of that wonderful company called Tend Health was our whanaunga Dr. Mataroria Linden. From up Ngāti Hine way, and another winner of a category within those high-tech awards. And really that's where we ultimately want to be heading, up the value chain into these high-tech industries, and our Māori whānau are doing it. And so that's really encouraging to see that we are participating right across the export spectrum. I want to, so I've talked about the trade benefits for Māori. We all know that there is going to be the CPTPP Commission meeting next month. I'm really, it is a big deal, as I've mentioned, for Aotearoa to be hosting these ministers. I think it's the biggest ministerial meeting that we have had in, maybe over 10 years here in Aotearoa. So for us, we're very proud of the fact that we can precede the commission meeting by ensuring that we are reaching out and that we are also engaging. And we're not always going to agree on every issue in terms of how we are approaching as te kāwana matters of trade. But I think we are definitely in ngākau nui ana, we're definitely genuine in the way that we are wanting to ensure that our whānau, our hapu, our iwi, our Māori people all across the motu are really have the benefiting from trade, as outlined by Minister Mahuta. And I must also acknowledge Minister O'Connor as well, who is very busy because all of this ties into the Commission meeting. You would have heard recently we have the UK Free Trade Agreement, and that is a landmark agreement, the first one under our Trade for All agenda. I want to acknowledge the specific provisions under our inclusive trade and sustainability provisions that we've put into that trade agreement, including our Māori economic chapter, and also there was recognition for Ngāti Toa and the attribution of the kamate haka, and shout out to Te Waiora or Te Whare Wānanga o Waikato for the incredible performance. So those are real milestones again, and I want to just acknowledge, she's like Whetu Wereta, Chrissy Grace, who's another government official who works within Te Manatu Aorere, She wrote this speech for me, which I'm not actually reading off, but I want to acknowledge her because she is another one of these very humble public servants, and there are many of them who do wonderful work for our people and for Aotearoa. And Chrissy was part of a team, and it is a wonderful team. You would have met my whanaunga, Tāne, if you're out there. Kia ora, Tāne, and also the teams at Te Puni Kōkiri. It's one thing to actually, have this whakaaro about how do we advance Māori interests and how can we really give that expression within trade agreements. But it's another step altogether to actually put it out there within the trade negotiations with the other parties, and to actually present that whakaaro and to work with it from there to actually get to a finished, get them to agree, because it is a negotiation, of course, and then to ultimately have that agreed to and put into the final agreement. So Chrissy was one of, and Tāne was another, and Greg, who's here as well, our Manatu Aorere Trade Policy Director. Amazing teams of officials that I know work very hard, but are actually making great strides with these trade agreements. And of course we've got the EU FTA, which there'll be some very good news coming through on that final ratification shortly. But again, a great expansion of our opportunities for Aotearoa, because these are just opening the doors for our firms to be able to go into these markets and to be able to benefit from, not having to have, for goods access, but also we want to be sure that the people, or that the economies and countries that we're dealing with, we actually have some common values and we share some common things, and that's what these our trade agreements now are putting in place through our inclusive trade and sustainable provisions as well. So we're hitting things not only at a Māori level, but at in the environment, labour standards, wahine, right across the board. And so I'm very proud to obviously be the Minister of State for Trade and Export Growth. If you're wondering what that is, it is actually a term that is used for basically the Associate Minister for Trade to support when we're dealing in international trade agreements. And I'm responsible for the upgrade of our ANZFTA agreement, the ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand Free Trade Agreement, which was one of our first, which we started off through Singapore. And I want to also just talk about the CPTPP is an open plurilateral mega trade agreement, and we are also doing many others, and we've heard about the ITAGs and the DEEPers and many others, and that's an important way. In Aotearoa, we are leading the way in terms of putting coalitions of common like-minded partners together, whether it's in South America, North America, Asia. We might be like a little country down in the South Pacific, but we definitely do punch above our weight in terms of being forward-thinking and being able to pull like-minded partners together to be able to deal with these big, massive markets and other big interests, I guess, to ensure that we are represented and we do get a good outcome for our New Zealand firms. And the work is just continuing. I want to, because we are also doing it in the Indigenous space with the IPECTA agreement, which you would have heard of, the Indigenous Peoples Cooperation Agreement. But again, this is building the platform for the future for our people to be able to to use these as a springboard for commerce and for trade with our Indigenous whanaunga right across the world. And I want to acknowledge Peter Tipene and Tracy Haupapa and others who are also involved in many very other groups have been putting the infrastructure together for agreements like the IPECTA as well. And that's going to be a very, it's like we've sown the seed now and it's starting to grow, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how that one evolves and how we are able to do more inclusive trade with our Indigenous whanaunga all over the world. So once again, just to conclude, I want to acknowledge you all and thank you all for coming. I know it's been a long day, but I'm really proud to be here on behalf of the government to tautoko the work of the CPTPP and what it's delivering. Obviously, my late Uncle Kukupa, he used to like to have the kōrero about the tapestry of understanding and how it's all the working together and the weaving of the beautiful tapestry that's created. But there are also lessons learned through the drop stitch, or if there are little imperfections there are lessons in those also. And I think that's the beautiful tapestry, I guess, that we are trying to make for our people in terms of extending the beautiful, the benefits of trade, of free trade for Aotearoa and for Te iwi Māori right across the world. And I'm sure as we progress, we'll be able to maybe correct maybe a stitch here or there, and it will be even more beautiful. But thank you all for your attention this evening, and kia piki te ora, te kaha, te māramatanga, ki rungi a tātou katoa, nō reira tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.